Hey, this is Nick. Welcome to Paco's Insight on Paco's Playground. Today we're going to cover a difficult topic that a lot of people struggle with behind closed doors. Paco and I are going to be looking into domestic violence. As of right now, this is going to be a one-part series, but in the future, we plan on bringing in some guests and kind of going deeper into this topic as this is a big source of mental health and despair for plenty of Americans and people across the world. So, Paco, what do you think?
Yeah. No, domestic violence are, you know, a big issue. A lot of people go through it, unfortunately. It's one of the most dangerous calls cops can ever get called to is domestic violence calls because they can, like that, it's a touchy subject, like Nick was saying, it's a lot. It's hard for people to talk about, and a lot of people that are in domestic violence situations really don't have an out. There's nowhere for them to go or, you know, not that there's not a way out, but they just think there's no way out, and it's,
A lot of it is just to go over the first thing you mentioned about the dangerousness of that call. For a police officer walking into a domestic violence situation, you got to realize the word domestic means it's in the family, in the household, it's somebody you know. So you're extremely passionate and protective. Insert whatever you want about the people in your household, the people you love, and when you get upset, you get extra upset when it's somebody that you love, as opposed to just some stranger where, you might be upset and angry, but when it's with someone that you love and feel passionately about, whether it be a brother, a sister, a wife, a husband, a girlfriend, someone you live with, like a roommate or something, no matter who it is, the emotions are a little extra hot in that situation. So when a cop shows up to the scene, yeah, it's extra, it's more dangerous because you're more likely to do something that's out of character, just given all the recipe that you have going on there, everything you have, all the ingredients. So that's pretty dangerous. But we're not here to talk about police's response to domestic violence.
yeah,
We're here to talk about the causes of it and how it affects people. And in the end, we're going to give some ways out and how people should, you know, try to get help, receive help, look for help. Um, I'm going to start by this one thing. This is a sign that you might be in a domestic relationship, like a domestic violence relationship or an abusive relationship. This is the one thing that I've learned. If the person you're with tries to isolate you from your friends, this is like the sign number one. If the person you're dating is trying to isolate you from your friends, that's a clear indication that they want to do something to you where you feel all alone, like they're the only ones in your life. It's almost intentional how they do it. And I think it very much so is intentional, so that you believe that you're dependent on this person who's now controlling your every move, controlling your emotions. So that's the first sign that you could be becoming a victim of domestic violence, are currently a victim of domestic violence, or just in an abusive relationship, either emotionally or physically. So you should probably consider, if you're in a relationship where your significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, is telling you who your friends should be, who you can hang out with, who you shouldn't hang out with, that these people suck and those people suck, that's a pretty clear indicator that something's wrong in the relationship. That's like the first sign that there's trouble in the waters. You agree with that, Paco?
yeah, yeah. It's people that are abusive because domestic violence relationships are abusive. I mean, well, not necessarily. Yeah, domestic violence. I mean, there's different definitions for domestic violence. I mean, it fits into those categories, but most domestic violence relationships are abusive.
Hold on.
Um, yep. But yeah, no, they people that are in domestic violence relationships are usually the guy is like Nick was saying, aggressive, not aggressive, but you know,
Control.
possessive, you know,
Control.
controlling. You can't do this, you can't do that. They want to know, who you're going out with 24/7, who you can hang out with, who you can't hang out with, where you can go, where you can't go. You know,
All
it's a
right, now
shame.
I'm going to tell you the second thing, and probably the most important thing when you're talking about a domestic violence relationship.
Just
We'll
wanted to
get to
toss
that in a
that.
second. This is
Wanted
the
to.
second thing. The second thing that I want you to know about domestic violence relationship is, and a key indicator, um, is I've spent a little bit of time with domestic violence awareness groups and stuff. The second thing that you should know or notice is anytime your friends start giving you advice, like if they start saying, "Hey, listen, maybe Johnny is not so good for you," or if your friends generally don't like this person, or if your friends come right out and say, "We think that he's mean and abusive, or that she's abusive and controlling," like that's a sign that you're in a relationship that has some toxicity behind it, and you should be well alert and you know keep your senses there and listen to your friends because your friends know you the best. Your family, your friends, and if they're going to come out and warn you, that's an indication that something's not right. Because usually your friends and family should like this person, but if they don't, you need to investigate where that is coming from.
Yeah. And people who usually warn you about these people, obviously they know something that you don't about this person. So you might want to, listen. And another thing too that I noticed or that I've seen in domestic violence relationships all the time is, oh, he hits me, or oh, he does this, he does that, but he bought me flowers, so it's okay. No. Just because he does something, buys you flowers, does not make it okay. Like, nothing's okay about, um, you know,
Yeah, basically they pee on your back and they tell you it's raining out. Let me get you an umbrella.
yeah,
Well, you peed all over my back. You're not really doing me any favors. That's the type of relationship that these people are creating, and you're becoming a victim to if you're
yeah,
in that type of situation. But this is not something exclusive to just um, romantic partnerships. This is something that's pretty broad. You can have this relationship if you're living in the house with somebody, a roommate. You can have a toxic relationship with them that amounts to domestic violence. So you might not be fully aware of this, but you can be living with somebody, there be a drama issue, and that now because you living together creates that domestic violence web that's very dangerous. And that's where a lot of the fear comes from is that everyone thinks it's just wife beaters. That's not the case. I mean, obviously it is the case, but not the only case. You have a lot of cases where you'll have a girlfriend or a wife that's abusive to the husband. You'll have parents that are abusive to their children and vice versa. You might have a young guy, older parents, or a young girl, older parents putting the parents through hell. Now you got a domestic violence situation. So there needs to be a little bit more awareness as to what exactly is domestic violence and that it's not just the man, whatever, beating up his girlfriend or wife or whatever. It's not just that. It's not a vague thing. It's a pretty broad thing, and it's a big issue, and it's perpetuated from mental health and the culture that we live in today. Kind of perpetuates this cycle of viciousness, violence, and these words that come out of our mouths that probably aren't the healthiest. You know, slowly chip away till you're in a situation where you shouldn't be.
mhm,
And it's easy to prevent, but it's hard to prevent. You know what I mean, Paco?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it's like I said, domestic violence is just no easy thing to have to go to. I'm sure.
So,
And
Paco, do you have the definition for domestic violence?
yep,
I'm gonna pull that up so that we can
right
read
here.
it over. Oh boy.
Yeah, I pulled up the actual Wikipedia thing because the.
Oh boy. You want me to read over the top here, the overview?
I mean, I can go hit back and get the
No,
short.
that's fine. Domestic violence is often used as a synonym for intimate partner violence, which is committed by one of the people in an intimate relationship against the other person. and can take place in heterosexual or same-sex relationships or before between former spouses or partners. So that's actually very empty. Yeah, yes, that's one aspect of domestic violence, but what I just explained to you was it's not just occurring in these domestic partnerships and relationships. This is violent or aggressive behavior within the home, typically involving the violent abuse of a spouse or partner. Like that's a good one. But I want people to see domestic violence as um, a symptom of abuse. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So this slide here says domestic violence can be broadly defined as a pattern of abusive relationships by one or both partners in an intimate relationship, such as a marriage, dating, family, friends, or cohabitation, which is exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It is the establishment of control and fear in a relationship through violence and other forms of abuse. So when we look at that, it is the establishment of control. So what the first thing that we talked about was if this person tries to separate you from your friends, that's the establishment of control and fear in a relationship through violence and other forms of abuse. So they don't have to just threaten you with violence. They can threaten you by saying, I'm going to leave you. I'm going to cheat on you. I'm going to do something, I'm going to break some of your property. I'm going to whatever. I'm going to use your credit card and spend your money. That's a form of abuse.
Yeah, and then the next one, the violence may involve physical abuse, sexual assault, and threats. That's whether it be rape, physical abuse, which is hitting, or threats like, oh, you know, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you, or stuff like that. Excuse my language, sorry, but you know,
The
um,
abuser tortures and controls the victim by calculated threats, intimidation, and physical violence. So, yeah, and everything there makes sense. Calculated threats. They already knew they were going to separate you from your friend group. Intimidation, they already knew you were going to be separated and need somebody. Physical violence is now who you're going to call. Ghostbusters ain't here. In
yeah,
most cases, the victims are women, children, and homes where there is domestic violence are also abused and neglected. Domestic violence is a crime and you must seek help.
yeah,
Paco?
yeah, and unfortunately, you know, it's hard to get help. Because like I was saying at the beginning, most people who are going through domestic violence are scared, because they've gone through this torment for so long that they think that. And also these people, these guys that do domestic violence also put into these, you know for an example, these women's heads that there's nobody out there for them that's better than them. They're not going to get any better than what they already have, which isn't true. If you're in a domestic violence relationship, that's not better. You know. Um.
You're in a bad position if you're in a domestic violence, partnership.
Yeah.
And you need to seek help immediately. Start by reaching out to your friends and family. Let them know. The more people you make aware of the situation, the better the help is going to be. And if you're ever in imminent threat of, violence, you need to call the police, call 911 right away, and report this happened.
Mm-hmm.
You can worry about all your other problems tomorrow. God only gave us 24 hours in a day because we can only deal with what happens in a 24-hour. We're only meant to worry about what's in today's day, not tomorrow's. So if you're dealing with something that's imminent, you need to handle it now.
Yeah.
Tomorrow could be too late. You could be in a body bag somewhere, buried, whatever. You want to make sure that you're handling the situation like as it comes. There's not much you can do besides, paying attention to early signs that this could be a toxic relationship, right? So to you stay out of that relationship, you can't really change it once you're in it so much because if this person already has it in their mind that they're going to be controlling, abusive, and toxic in your life, then it's very difficult for that relationship to change or evolve. So at that point, sadly, it's probably best to separate from someone who's abusive and stop telling yourself it's going to get better, it's going to get better, because that's statistically that's not true.
Yeah.
So just remember that there's somebody out there for you. You don't need to stay in a relationship, no matter what the status is of your relationship, if there's going to be any type of violence. That's the same thing for people that are living together. If you're brothers and sisters or whatever, if you have a way out of that relationship, even if it's with your parents, maybe a roommate or a sibling or whatever, that's not just a dating relationship, an intimate relationship, you should still try to separate yourself from that, because that toxicity affects the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And it goes into even your alone time. Now you're thinking about, you have all this undue stress from some other situation you have in your life that's causing the domestic violence.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to take a look at what Richard commented earlier. We were kind of going on for a little bit, so I couldn't get to his comment. But he said another thing I want to put out there. I don't know what you guys think, but no mother or father should take their domestic partner over their kids and kick them out. Which that was kind of what I was getting towards with I'm not trying to put Richard's cousin's business out there, but that's what I was bringing up earlier. That's kind of unfortunately what Richard's cousin's going through right now is his mother ended up taking the abusive stepfather's side, and he kind of got kicked out. And it's unfortunate. It really is, but and like I kept telling Richard, you can't help somebody that doesn't want to be helped. That's the sad part about domestic violence. And that comes to the point I was making earlier is, people who, oh, he bought me flowers, so it's okay. Those type of people don't want to be helped because they don't think they need it. But like we were saying earlier, it doesn't fix nothing. I mean, yeah, to you it may be a temporary fix, but tomorrow he's going to be the same old jerk that he was to you before. He's going to hit you again, and then he's going to buy flowers, buy chocolates, whatever it is that he does to make it up to you. And it's, oh, yeah, well, he still loves me. He bought me flowers. Or he still loves me. He bought me a bracelet. Yeah, it's hush money. That don't mean nothing. It's hush money. Because he knows deep down inside that you call the cops, it's over for him. He's going to jail. It's hush money to keep, unfortunately, people quiet. And it makes people blind to what's really going on. And it's
I'm just gonna kind of piggyback on what Paco's saying. Shout out to Kentucky Fried Chicken in the building for their Nashville hot chicken tenders a swish. But
yeah,
just to just to piggyback on, in response to sort of Richard's situation, right?
yep,
So obviously it's wrong. Okay, it's totally wrong for someone who's a victim of domestic violence to take someone who causes that violence over their own children, but it happens all the time.
yep,
Why does it happen all the time? There's a great reason. There's a great variety in reasons for that. Not a great reason, but a bunch of reasons. Um, Sometimes it's just monetary. You don't have enough money to live without the person. They know that. They've established control of the relationship. So now they reign supreme. They know that they have you by your wallet, and that's a pretty powerful thing in this day and age. Another thing could be you don't have a friend group. You don't have necessarily a place to live. Maybe you don't have family, so you're kind of isolated. And another situation could be like, maybe there's two sides of the story in some of these domestic violence situations where, the toxicity in the relationship, the origin, you're only kind of hearing one side of it. Domestic violence is so toxic that it can go both ways and be a big issue. At which point, the best thing to do is just separate from the situation voluntarily, so you're not part of it. You
yeah,
know, I'm gonna I want to touch on a situation too. A very close friend of mine, a very close friend of mine, and this is kind of a strange type of story. Um, but it's this is would be considered like a form of domestic violence. Definitely some type of psychological abuse going on here. But this told
is this what Derek was talking about earlier with the juice bottle?
no, Derek has his
No.
own
Oh,
story.
because he brought that up with the I got assaulted with a juice bottle, and we never touched base on that. So
Well, I think Derek will probably tell his own story. You know what I mean? I
okay,
don't want to get into
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm not going to get into his story of juice bottle attacks, but
It's probably
a close
elementary school.
a close friend of mine was living in a house, with someone who was just a roommate. Okay. Now the roommate had a boyfriend. So now the boyfriend is coming over, and there's issues between my buddy and this girl's boyfriend, who's now always over there. At first, it was just they didn't talk to each other. And then it was they played almost pranks on each other, and then next thing you know, there were issues between the girl who was the roommate and my buddy, and that became very toxic to the point where he had to end up moving out. And that's what I suggested that he do, because it was such a toxic three-way vicious honey badger circle where sooner or later someone's going to end up on the wrong side of some handcuffs. And I didn't want it to be him, or even the girl that was his friend and roommate. So at some point, the easiest thing to do is walk away and separate yourself from that situation. As hard as and difficult as that may be, it's the safest way to sort of ensure that you're not going to continue to be victimized. And this, you have to understand what we're talking about. We're talking about the threat of violence being so extensive that you can die as a result, being so extensive that you can be seriously assaulted and be afflicted with serious bodily harm and trauma and brain trauma if they do something vicious. Your emotional state for the rest of your life could be affected. The way that you enter and exit relationships could be affected by this. So it's important that you separate yourself from this as soon as you see any indications that you're involved in a abusive relationship or in a domestic violence, a full blown issue. You need to separate.
Yeah. And also that can become, like Nick was saying, that can be become a problem later with future relationships if you do manage to put yourself out there again after going through something like that. It's the trust issues. You're not really going to be able to trust like you did before after that. That takes a big hit on trust issues and commitment, and it takes a lot to go forward after going through something like that, especially in relationships, or if it's not in a relationship manner, even if it's like a family domestic violence thing, it's
There's a
that
lot of
takes.
there's a lot of unhealthy things that happen in a relationship that some people may not consider to be necessarily domestic violence. If you're living with somebody, or you're dating someone, or you're with somebody for a long time, and you're in a situation where you're constantly breaking up, you're constantly arguing, you're constantly having an issue, that is a sign that the relationship itself is unhealthy and you need to get away from that. It's not going to get more healthy, right? If you're fighting all the time, it's probably going to get more unhealthy, and you need to consider separating from that relationship just to kind of preserve your own sanity. You don't want to
Yeah,
end up a victim of domestic violence or any type of abuse. So if you see any indications, again, get out of it. And if you're living that way, leave. You don't need to.
yeah,
Some people are better off single too. Some people chase they chase a special someone, but some people are just better off single. And you need to find that season in your life and live that way.
yeah. And then Richard just commented saying, if your father is abusing you, no, if your father is abusing your mother, doesn't mean he doesn't love you, and the mother shouldn't let him have rights to see their kid unless he's abusing the kid.
All right, I'll answer this question, right? If your father's abusing your mother, your parents have an unhealthy relationship and there needs to be a separation in that relationship. If the father's not abusing you, right? Let's say that the father's abusing the mother and is verbally abusive to you. Maybe it's best that you don't deal with the father, and you let the courts handle that. But either way, if you're a child, you're living in a home and you're witnessing this abuse, you have to understand that there's a lot of psychological trauma involved in this, and you need to seek help immediately. It's not normal for a child to observe abuse or any type of domestic violence and continue to cope adequately in their life. So if they see something, they should say something. And I know it's difficult to report things to the police or other authorities, maybe a teacher, someone at school, but if they have a friend, an aunt, a grandparent, a cousin, someone in the family, maybe they can report it to and see what they can do, because people want to help you when they hear this type of situation. When they hear domestic violence, it's a pretty hot topic and everybody wants to get involved.
Yeah.
So I'd recommend, Richard, that you know in this situation, if it's a father and mother having an incident and there's a child there that the child seeks help from, maybe another family member if they're not comfortable telling a teacher in the school or a social worker or a cop.
Mm. All right, we got just about 5 more minutes left, so I think we got time to answer Taylor's question because he just got in with his question. So I don't think it really pertains to domestic violence, but I mean that's his question for you.
What does one do when one does not like your best friend's best friend? How do you tell them you don't want to be around when they are all together? So that's a personal decision, in my opinion. But definitely not related to domestic violence.
And then he added this second part to
Without
end it.
being a D and getting your best friends mad at you for not wanting to hang out with the other couple. Well, if you have an issue with a couple, um,
Just
the
be
only
honest
way
at
the
that
only
point.
way I know how to answer this is going to be like the way I'm commanded, right? So I would say that you should go to that person and forgive that couple that you don't like or you're having issues with. The first thing you do is forgive it. Tell them what you think the problems are. See what their response is, and if they're mad at you or whatever, then you tell your friends, "Look, I tried to talk it out with this couple. They don't want to work it out, and I'd rather not be around them because I don't like the drama associated and the other problems that are going to come from me hanging around with them." That's my personal recommendation on that. Take the problem to the people you have problems with first. See if you can mediate it at that level. If you can't, then you should probably let your friends know you're just not cool with it. You're uncomfortable, and you don't want to be put in a situation where you're uncomfortable.
Or you can just do the easy way and just blow them off,
Ghost them. You
ghost
could
them.
go, but if you ghost them, you're never going to deal with the problem, and you're eventually going to run into them again, and it's going to be awkward. So I
Yeah.
think it's better to just take it head on, so that if you deal with the problem head on, you're not dealing with it later on.
You ask a question and then you write saying "Okay, mom." Like
I gave you a good answer.
it was a good
Well,
answer.
so here we go. I'm going to tell you this. Tomorrow morning at 10:30, make sure you tune into Apple Monster. I'm going to be on his channel discussing some tech gear with Taylor. And I was on his channel the other day, so shout out to Apple Monster and his YouTube channel.
Yeah, and in case you're wondering, here I'll put the comment up there so you can see the channel name. I'll link it in the description down below for you guys because I know a lot of you guys don't like typing stuff out yourself. You like channel links, which actually none of my Pacos insights have any descriptions yet. I haven't added them, which is just me making. I enjoy making these videos so much. Me and Nick love doing them. We just crank them out, and we don't. I haven't been doing the so
Well, we plan on having some guests in the future, and
yeah.
if there's a topic you want to hear about, like this domestic violence was suggested to us and recommended. If
Yep.
there's something that you want to see or have a video you want us to react to or review, please let us know. This has
Hmm.
been Paco's Insight on Paco's Playground. Please like, share, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification so you know every time Paco and I are going live, so we can rip it on your phone. And we're going to get our descriptions done. Paco's going to take care of that before the next video.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. Happy Good Friday, and have a good Easter.
Yep.
This
Yeah.
is
Happy Good Friday. Happy Good Friday. Happy Easter, and try to stay good people.